CROSSTALK.
Talking crosstalk.
Coming together for CROSSTALK.
This really is a show that demands a theme song or
I would
something.
agree.
It needs something like CROSSTALK.
Can we outsource this to listeners?
Yes.
I don't know if any of you are committed enough to make us an intro song, but I would love to hear something.
We'll play it. You send us a CROSSTALK intro song, and it's going to get on this airway.
Well, let me give you some boundaries. It's got to be short and sweet, baby.
Yeah, don't send us any 10-minute opuses of,
Yeah.
violins and
And don't rhyme Donnie Cates with Master Bates.
although clever, not the place.
We've given them a lot of don'ts. Any do's you want to give them?
Everything else, the world is your oyster after that.
I
Use
want more
any instrument.
panpipe.
If you don't know, you just stumbled into CROSSTALK.
CROSSTALK!
We used to be First Issue Club.
And we still are.
And we still are.
Yeah, that hasn't
Okay.
changed.
But now we're releasing CROSSTALK. The first time ever, First Issue Club is diving into a review of a number 2, and which will be also a review of a number 3, a number 4, a number 5, a number 6, and however long crossover goes, CROSSTALK will be there with you, covering every single issue.
It's a sub-show within a show. It's kind of our own crossover.
It's like the Seinfeld of podcasting. It's a show about nothing.
Everybody,
It's a show about a very specific thing.
Yeah. Take it back.
So it's not Seinfeld. It's Wings.
The only other thing it could be.
Well, and I should say this. I think this is the only crossover podcast ever. So we're the first in that.
yes, and we will be the last.
Wow, that sounds threatening. We're just here to have a good time.
Well, he didn't say we'll be the only. He just said we'll be the last.
Yes, we'll be the last man standing. It's not the first time we've come up with a new idea and had to take other people out with it. There are a lot of people talking about Crossover, the comic book, for many different reasons that we're going to get into. The second thing they're talking about is First Issue Club doing a sub-genre thing, their own crossover, CROSSTALK. We're here with that thing that they're talking about. You've entered into it. This is the second book of Crossover.
I'm going to need
So much
breadcrumbs to get out of
wind
that.
This is number 2. If you don't know, the first issue of Crossover already happened. Donnie Cates, Jeff Shaw, of what fame?
Oh, God. Well, let me just name them off here. God Country, Redneck, Thanos Wins. I mean, it's a power couple, baby. They're the dynamic duo. You thought it was Donnie Cates and Ryan Stegman? Well, it's also that, too. But it's also Jeff Shaw and Donnie Cates.
Some things you need to know about Crossover. Highly anticipated because there are going to be crossovers. There's rumored to be lots of different heroes from other comic books, not only in the Image world where this is published, but likely even outside of the Image world, which we could even get into in this episode. The other thing that they're doing is they're mentioning authors and illustrators and creators by name, and they're really diving into the world of collecting comic books, being at a comic book store, what it is to be a reader within its own adventure story.
Mm-hmm.
It's a comic book for comic book fans.
Which is weird to say because aren't all comics supposed to be for comic book fans?
Here's the thing. There's a lot of comic books that try to say this is a love of comics or for like
It's a love letter.
an homage, to comics. This is the end all be all of that. There shouldn't be any more. This should be the last.
Yeah.
This is the comic book that truly took on that mantle.
It's doing it in a really creative, fun way. Greg and I might have even talked about this on the earlier episode you should listen to, First Issue Club, plug for the mainline feed. What I would recommend is listening to an entire episode that Greg and I recorded and devoted to the first issue. But a lot of homage stories do this corny, hokey thing where it's this noir, set back in time, campy, over the top, like cereal box sort of story that doesn't translate now. Like you're writing a love letter to a genre that doesn't exist anymore.
It belongs in a museum, not in
Not in my hands.
a $4 piece of paper. Yeah. So, have we done enough setup to be able to dive into number 2?
Yeah, so a quick recap. A quick recap of issue number 1.
Great.
We get introduced to the world. We get introduced to our main characters, Ellipses and the young man, Orion. who goes by Ryan, their main purpose in this cult is to destroy any kind of comic book or any kind of material that has comic book paraphernalia on it, because they think that these superheroes are ruining our quote-unquote real world and destroying it.
They're choosing to combat it with violence and like harmful rhetoric that is largely based in religion.
Yes, they're choosing not to give peace a chance.
The climax of the issue was that we find a kid who has made it out of the bubble, who's like a comic book person. She's like halftone styled, like a vintage comic, looks really cool in contrast to the other art style. And we find that she was rescued by a character who she draws and can be mistaken for no one else other than Superman. On an Image comic book. Blew my mind. I got chills when I turned that page.
Yeah, and that was the last page of the comic.
Ooh.
So now we've recapped issue 1, and we go right into issue 2 with some very interesting imagery from different superheroes from all over the publishing world. What did you guys think about that?
My mind like broke from the very first panel because they started with saying something about Brian K. Vaughan, and they called him from Marvel fame. And then one of the main characters is basically like, Brian K. Vaughan from Marvel fame? Come on. And they're like doing this meta criticism because it's like obvious that you would know him from either Y the Last Man or Saga.
Yeah.
But the news, of course, who's not in comic book world, would call him Marvel fame or whatever.
Well, and even Elle was like the Runaways guy.
They later take the joke on, and Elle goes the Runaways guy, and they do a panel with no words where he just looks at her and is like, what the fuck?
We've all heard these conversations in the comic book shop 1,000 times before, so like to have that panel snuck in there was fucking brilliant.
I love it. We're not worried about accessibility in this book at all. Like, it's very inside and it's for us. We're the people who go to the comic shop every week to buy comics. Like, it's awesome that there's something so specific and honed into the thing we love.
And it's also mentioning the authors that we love by name.
Yes.
Chip Zdarsky, Robert Kirkman,
Scott Snyder.
Todd McFarlane.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy how much this book is for us.
We got a glimpse into some of the prison camps. One of the things we mentioned, the bubble that traps, or force field, I guess, that traps heroes in most of the metropolitan area of Denver, happened while some heroes were on the outskirts of the city.
Yeah.
So some people were wrangled. We see a bunch of arms hanging out of jail cells. And, we're seeing what could not be mistaken for anyone else other than the Thing,
Yep.
Spider-Man, Spawn,
Yep. Batman. Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman.
Yep.
Madman.
That's debatable, but it was close to Madman, I think. But it was very reminiscent of a double splash panel from Spawn number 8 from the early 90s.
Yeah.
Where they did the same thing. And that panel, as a kid, melted my brain because it was the first time where I was just like, these guys aren't supposed to be in this comic. What the fuck is happening? And Donny Cates took that and doubled down on it and was just like, let's make a whole fucking series about that then.
Let me pause for a very illustrious moment here.
Oh, God.
Greg notices that. He tweets at Donny Cates and says, hey, was this inspired? Donny Cates acknowledges it,
Yeah.
thus bringing First Issue Club into crossover. Now we're in crossover.
We're canon.
We're going to try to insert ourselves as much as possible.
Yeah. First Issue Club is now in crossover, and we're loving it.
Yeah, it's great here.
The world is your oyster here. I mean, it is kind of crazy that, like, Donny Cates is creating a world where he can pull in anything. It's speculated that there's this fake video that's out.
Yeah, Robert Kirkman just dropped this kind of weird video on his personal YouTube saying that Image called him and found an old comic book that him and Ryan Ottley had done right after Invincible. And the funny thing was, it wasn't a first issue that they found, it was issue 17, which makes you infer that there was other issues that we should have been reading already. So there's this kind of like meta fun game that Donny Cates and other creators are playing where it's just like this world lives outside of the comic book now. Like it's making it more of like this weird Truman Show scenario where it's just like the crossover isn't a comic book event anymore. It's now like an art piece. It's a happening. It's like it's interactive.
Yeah, that comic book may exist in the crossover universe, and now it's intruding into our world.
Which is like a multi-layered
Yeah.
mind fuck, which is just like, I said it in the episode where we did issue number 1. If Donny Cates has officially brokered a deal between every publisher to be like, hey, can I borrow your characters for like one issue just to get some fun like fan service going on, it's the best thing that's happened to comic books in decades.
It's the thing that sometimes you read too much of an artwork and you just start to say everything's bad. If you're that person that's read too many comic books, this is the comic book that you're like, oh shit, this broke me. This broke it. This figured out how to do it differently.
Yeah.
And it's also a damn good story. The main character, L, is that how you say it?
Well, her name's Ellipses, but they call her Elle.
Is constantly cosplaying, and in this issue you found out was also secretly living in the comic book store that got blown up in the first issue and is now a refugee. And I love that, like, yeah, it could be all of that weird crossover comic book world, but it also could just be a cool story about these comic book store owning friends.
We should mention that Ryan, the Orion character, blew up the comic book shop in a religious kind of show of force of just like, we're not going to accept this stuff in our town anymore.
He was doing the bidding of his dad, the leader.
Puppy.
Yes. And so he's then turned over to like this weird law enforcement guy who has a office that is surrounded in comic books, surrounded in comic book paraphernalia. Like I saw Ant-Man's helmet, I saw a piece of kryptonite, I saw other things. Like it was fun looking for those little Easter eggs in this guy's office.
Well, and not only that, but to like realize that that's how he has to do his research on how to combat them.
Yeah, like that gave me the thought, like I could do that guy's job. Like I could fight those superheroes.
You would know how to target their weaknesses.
And so what comes out in that room is that there's the bubble where there's lots of actual havoc going on somewhere in Colorado. And then there's all these people that didn't quite get put into the bubble. Mm-hmm. And this organization is trying to round them up and keep them in camps or...
Yeah, it's kind of dark. It's like concentration camp
yeah,
style.
it is very much concentration
Because it's
camp.
also separated between those who they aren't sure if they have powers or not. So a lot of parallels to like ICE detainment camps, like here. But like it's interesting because he's gonna get recruited to work for them, but he's still very much being pitted against as her love interest at the whole time this is going on.
It
narratively.
straight up says narratively,
Yeah.
they're gonna love each other.
Yeah.
Which the narrator in this, we're getting more insight on as this book unfolds. As even when the book starts, it's like the end of the world, and then it's like, no, wait, I'm way ahead of myself. This part's gonna come first.
Yes.
So there's some omniscient narrator who seems to be writing the book or playing the cards of all the characters. This kid Orion is given a note that tonally matches our narrator, I think, right? Did you guys gather that or infer the
Yes.
same thing?
Yeah, well, it almost sounds like it's someone from the future.
It was like signed ... I don't know if it's from Ellipses.
Or their kid, or who knows.
It could have
but,
been the parents or something like that. So a couple of things that are interesting about this comic book is that Donny Cates promises that number 3 is the book to own, and then also number 6. So number 3 across a lot of shops is sold out, likely because of some cameo appearance that's going to happen or whatever. And people know when Donny Cates says something's going to happen, like when he revealed Eddie Brock's son or various things, he's honest about these PR things. They're not PR stunts, and the books go bananas. So people are like, yep, he said it. It's going to happen.
Yeah, killed Galactus. It
Right.
happened.
And so there's that. I think that there's also references to stuff that are, it's essentially like breadcrumbs of like, who could that be? So this person that is keeping the concentration camp says, well, we did mess with this one superhero who had this essentially technology that would nullify all superpowers. So we actually put that in the jail cell with everybody, which I don't know what that is, but I bet that's an existing piece of tech somewhere in comic book world that they were able to grab.
Well, they hand Orion...
The bullet.
The bullet has the same tech that dampens superheroes' powers. It's like a bright glowing green. And I was like, is that a kryptonite bullet?
It looks like a kryptonite.
Is that for Superman? Is this kid supposed to kill Superman?
The other thing that is alluded to is that there's some superhero that can tell the future and is super powerful and is not affected by this nullifying device that's sending these messages.
I think that's who our narrator is.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
Which, if it turns out to be Donnie Cates,
It could be Donnie Cates. I
how,
mean,
I
he
like
could have
it.
written
funny
himself
would that
in
be?
this.
So that's like the classic Stephen King thing that he did in Dark Tower.
Yeah.
Is that like he eventually you go to Stephen King writing the Dark Tower.
Oh, cool.
Donny Cates is a lot cooler than Stephen King though.
Stephen King's pretty cool.
He's an all right guy.
Yeah, Stephen King
right.
did cocaine. He's pretty cool.
Well, and is the assumption that you can't break through the dome?
So we don't know if you can get in or out of the dome at this
No.
point. Yeah.
Our lead characters are foggy to that too. I don't think they've ever tried. Why would you? It's like mass chaos in there apparently, or it's what you're led to believe. I don't think we as the reader have seen much of that. There's like a flash of Shazam inside the dome, I think. But other than that, we haven't seen too much, right?
No, that's like a callback to issue 1 where like they first appear from wherever they came from. You get all this carnage and bloodshed, and then the dome is constructed to keep them all in.
Yeah.
So who knows what's in that dome now? I mean, you would speculate that they can go under it, like
dig
like
under.
through the sewers or whatever.
Oh, TMNT style.
Yeah,
Are
yeah.
TMNT going to be in this?
Holy fucking shit! I mean, were they under the Image umbrella ever?
Yeah, there's a couple image books that they have. So yeah, I don't know how that works.
So if you see any turtles eating pizza, we can assume.
So in theory, this is like what Ready Player One, the movie, wanted to do, but couldn't get the licenseship to do with
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg,
Oh God,
and it like was
I don't
a
like thinking about it.
mediocre movie at best.
Yeah.
And it's here. It's like I would imagine. I don't know, but Donny Cates probably was like, let me cast these reels out and see what I can get, and then I'm gonna put that into the story, which makes like such a better.
A ton of foresight into what he can actually work with. So
This book has this readability power that I haven't run into in a lot of books, whereas like you're going through it looking for clues. I just haven't had that excitement to go through something and try to find something that somebody else hasn't found since since watching Lost, to be honest. That's what it felt like, is like trying to find a little clue to like know what's coming next. That's brilliant. It's amazing.
And it doesn't spoil it that Donny Cates is kind of just like, yeah, I'm leaving clues in all of these pages. It almost makes it fun to try to find them and then go online and be like, okay, what did I miss? And like, what are people seeing that I'm not seeing? He really is making it more of an engaging process. Like, so many times comic books is kind of this lonely thing of you go to your shop, you don't talk to anybody, you bring your books back and you read them in your basement or your room, and then you put them in your sleeves and you put them away. Donny Cates has flipped that and says like, no, let's talk about these things. Let's fucking have a dialogue and let's, share these moments that we're having reading this book.
He's also riffing with other creators through the actual panels, like fucking with them or like talking to them
Or
and
killing
stuff.
them.
Yeah, or killing them, which is just so good. The book ends with a cliffhanger, a good cliffhanger. You think the main character, or sorry, the refugee character, the two-tone character that was in the comic book shop, who's now in their house, is a seemingly just a lost girl.
well,
And-
she says like there are a bunch of people without powers in these camps, so you're just like, oh, they just happen to come from another verse where they coexisted with people with powers, just looked like this, looked different, totally harmless, just being persecuted for no reason.
And the comic book store owner says something which kind of perceived by Elle to be like racist or xenophobic, in that like, I don't even know what that girl could be. She could be an atom bomb or whatever. And like Elle is like, come on, like it's a girl. Like we need to get her back home or
Just because
whatever.
she's from a comic book doesn't mean she's dangerous.
Well, he doesn't say X-Men, but he's like, she could be a mutant and her powers haven't manifested yet.
Yeah.
Which
Yes, yeah.
is how X-Men works. You turn like a certain age and then all your stuff switches on.
And is in theory referencing like a Dark Phoenix or the Phoenix in some ways, that this could be an atom bomb and she doesn't know it.
Yeah, she could have very intense powers.
And you find out in the last panel as she fries a rat
With
that
her eyes.
that she does indeed have powers. I also love that they live in a rat-infested house and are not bothered by it.
Yeah, the guy's just like, kick him out of the way. They're fine. They're not
Yeah.
going to get you. I think it's just like there's a lot of really strange parallels between our real lives that we live in every day and this comic book that Donny Cates is playing with that is just brilliant. There's the separate camps for people. There's the hatred for people that are different. There's just like the ongoing violence. It's just like he's making it a digestible like commentary on the world at large and the comic book community, and it's masterful.
I cannot wait for this to come every single month, and I haven't been this excited about a comic book in a very, very long time.
I know. That's why we started this show. Crosstalk.
Crosstalk. We're talking crosstalk. Yeah, talking crosstalk.
Please, someone make us an intro and outro.
We're just doing the Crossfire theme. Remember that toy?
Oh yeah.
I think that's kind of what we're all going back to.
Crosstalk.
You'll get caught up in the.
Crosstalk.
It's another comic book.
Crosstalk. Donny Cates and Jeff Shaw.
This has to stop.
That's crosstalk. That's what we are going to do. Every time there's a new crossover, we're going to pop in here. We're going to record an episode of Crosstalk. And if you like it, let us know. Check it out. Stay tuned. It's going to be fun for us. We hope it's fun for you. It's the thing. It's the thing to talk about.